What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Movie Time. You got the movie bros in the house again this week. Renee, Low-Key Geek here. Blake, what's going on, dude?
Mr. Renee, I've missed you. New year, we're going to just be talking about 2023 movies again for the rest of the time. No award season, right? No living in the past, baby. Just
Right.
pushing forward. What are we talking about today, Renee?
2022 recap. So,
Hell yeah,
yeah,
2022,
so
baby.
there you
All rear view
go.
mirror. Let's go. We are
Oh,
in
yeah.
the thick of it. There are no new movies that are that interesting. And
Not really.
I personally love end of year lists. That's where I get like all my watch lists, all the things that I missed. I love end of year lists, like just comparing my rankings to other people's rankings.
Yeah.
I love award season. This is like our playoffs, baby.
Oh,
Let's
my God.
go.
Yeah, we are in the thick of it for sure. And if you haven't realized by now, the main topic of this episode is we're going to be talking about the Cinephiles app, Blake's favorite movie blogging app, and that is Letterboxd. They finally came out with their year-end review. So we're going to go through some of the lists that they created there and curated for us to take a look at and check on and see how our list compared to theirs. Also, we'll be talking about a couple movies before that. So thank you again for tuning in. If you are brand new to this channel and you haven't seen us before and you're like, who the fuck are you guys? Hello, we are the Movie Bros, and this is the Movie Time podcast. It's a weekly movie review podcast where you got two buds who just bullshit and talk about movies and all that stuff. So if you like what you see, you want to see more of this, don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Hit the notification bell so you can get notified every time a new video is uploaded. If you are an audio listener, you want a podcast version of this and many other videos, you can check it out on the Low-Key Geek podcast channel. Just go type out Low-Key Geek on your podcast platform of choice where you could download this and many other episodes. And if you are already an audio listener, thank you so much for tuning in. Our audio numbers have been increasing in the last couple of weeks, and it's mainly because of our white noise episode and our year in review. So I'm hoping the white noise is for people who are actually looking to hear reviews of the movie White Noise
That
and
is
not looking for
so funny.
sleep aid
That is so because I listen to
going
white
to bed. So
noise
a lot of people
every
do.
night on
Yeah.
my HomePod, and when I ask Siri to play white noise, I'm like, I hope this isn't the time she plays country music. I hope I get white noise, the sound. I'm
Right.
also I was wondering about that if their video would suffer because people go, "Hey Alexa" or whoever,
Uh-huh.
play white noise, the movie, and they're just like,
It's
okay,
like
I guess the movie's not out
right.
yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you get like that those YouTube videos with like the rain falling and all that stuff like that. And that's it. But I did say white noise, parentheses 2022. So it is, I refer to it as a film and everything, but yeah, who knows? We'll hopefully it's doing
Wh-
okay there.
White noise for no Baumbach, more like white casting choices. You guys
Hey.
notorious for yeah, okay. All right. Sorry.
Well,
All
well,
right.
no, well, this time he had two
Okay.
diverse, actors in that movie for
And they
sure.
played huge roles as lead characters.
Absolutely. I mean, come
Yeah, I
on,
remember Andre 3000 holding a box of cookies, and I
doing the little
wish he
shimmy.
had a bigger part. I really wish he'd had a bigger part. There's never enough Andre 3000 in the world.
It's interesting to see when he pops up because it's usually when you don't expect it, right? And you're like, wait a minute, it's Andre 3000. What the hell is he doing there? So yeah, really good stuff. But yeah, like I said, before we go into our little review of the review from Letterboxd, Blake, I know you caught a couple of things since the last time we spoke. Anything you worth mentioning that you want to talk about?
Yes, thank you so much for asking, Renee. I saw on Monday. I went to the Paris Theater, a legendary New York film theater, and so got to see Janelle Monáe do a Q&A after Glass
Nice.
Onion, which was one of those definitely rewatch it movies. Obviously, the murder mystery of it all, but there were a lot of things that paid off when you rewatch it. Even early on, you go, "Oh, they're hinting at something," or "Now I'm in on the thing
Mhm.
that this character is in on." That was really fun, and then getting to see Janelle Monáe in person. Are you kidding me? Um, the main new movie I saw which I'm surprised it's not getting more award season talk, is Women Talking.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned that in a recent episode of something you'd seen.
Mhm.
And you basically told me the things I needed to hear to go see it.
Yeah.
I don't do well with movies that are big on the R word or domestic violence, people being stuck in a room, etc. But I do love movies where it's just like people having a conversation for the duration of the film, and that's basically what this one was, with a couple
Yep.
moments where we're taken out of the barn. Overall, I thought it was very successful. I really enjoyed it, especially given the content of the movie. And you
Yeah.
were right, they're not showing things, they're showing the fallout of those things. And that to me
Yep.
was a brilliant choice. It also was a lot funnier than I thought it would be. And I'm not trying to be rude there. The women are making jokes amongst themselves.
Yes.
And I was
Yeah.
listening to something about it where the director asked the author of the movie, "What's the most important thing you want me to take when I adapt this? What's the most important thing to you?" And they would try to honor that. And they said it was the humor that in this community, and when these things happen, and in this community, that in particular where similar thing happened, the women survived on their humor, and
Mhm.
that is necessary.
Yeah.
And so I actually, it was nice to hear that, because there wasn't a ton of laughter in the theater, especially given there's a lot of dark humor, and I really
Mhm.
enjoy dark humor. So I definitely thought it was at least funnier than I thought it would be. And then just some incredible, incredible acting. I'm surprised it's not getting more award season traction, but it might be one of those things where, similar to me, a lot of people are kind of concerned with, will this be fun or just the most.
Mhm.
There's a way to describe the movie where it sounds like the most miserable film of all time, where just
Yeah.
everyone doesn't want to sit through. And that was, if I had any beef with it, it'd be, I have a past in debate and a very logical brain, and so hearing people argue in a circle, having a difficult time making up their minds, and sometimes there's like non sequiturs they don't see something through, or they're not doing it in a systematic
Mhm.
enough way, etc. But there is a moment too where I was like, "Oof, they got me." Or Ben Whishaw, who plays the male lead and the only
Yep.
real male actor in the movie, says like, "Okay, now we should move over to this category." They're like, "You do not get to speak,"
Yeah.
and they
Don't you
put him in his
dare say
damn
anything, right?
place. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, my bad. Also, I was having the similar thought though. But it is frustrating to me to hear people being stuck in a situation and not know how to get out. But that all to say, I was very invigorated by a lot of the conversation, much more than I was kind of like frustrated by it. And overall, I would fully recommend it to basically anyone, especially if they weren't seeing it because of concerns about the content of what would actually be on the screen.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you finally had a chance to see it, and I'm glad that the things I knew you would like about it, you actually did like about it. So, but you're right. There's a lot of things in that movie that was comical, and it makes sense because I remember one time I used to work with somebody, and we would go through a lot of hard times, issues with management and all that stuff like that. And the one thing she always used to say to me is like, Renee, sometimes you just gotta laugh because if you're not laughing, you're crying. And
Mhm.
it like makes perfect sense, and it kind of goes in sync with what these women are going through and all that stuff like that. So especially as a community of women, how can you deal with that sort of grief? And I guess laughter is like the best. Laughter is the medicine that heals a lot of things, right? Whenever you can. So that is very, very interesting. But it is also, I'm glad you mentioned it too, because I am also surprised that it's not getting a lot of buzz. Because, like I said, we are in the thick of like award season. All the critic circles are having their awards and their top lists and everything for 2022, and it a lot of the movies that have heavy messages are not being talked about, which is kind of
Yeah,
interesting. Women Talking, She Said, Till.
yeah,
These are the ones that we thought were going to be heavy
you're right.
pushers for this time, and we're not hearing
You're right.
anything about it, right? So it's kind of, I don't know. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, you could see where this movie could have three female supporting, and maybe
Yeah.
I don't even know if there is a lead. It's a lot of supporting performances.
Hmm.
I'm sure they could do some category and put somebody in lead. Uh, is it Rooney Mara? And then
Rooney Mara,
the and Ben
Claire
Whishaw could be a
Foy.
supporting. There could be. screenplay for sure, adapted
Yeah.
screenplay, which we might see it there at the Oscars. But I honestly think the reason is It's a Wonderful Life, the classic movie with Jimmy Stewart, didn't do very
Hmm.
well at its time, and the anecdotal evidence or explanation is that it was a really depressing time in America, and you're talking like between Great Depression and war, and like people just want to get out of their heads
Yeah.
and they don't want to watch a Great Depression type movie. I think that's pretty true here. That
Yeah.
after a couple of years of being locked down, people really want to go to Top Gun, Maverick, and Avatar 2, and are after the political everything in recent years, like it makes sense to want to escape from that.
Yeah.
And there's times where that's not as true and people are intentionally going out of their way. Then at some point you can get burned out on all that and everything everywhere all at once being like there's movies with messages in them, but they're not the it's on the movie poster messages. And I think those
Hmm.
have been more successful maybe for that exact reason, where it's kind of like the medicine that people want, not even if it's not always what they need.
Yeah. No, I mean it's I definitely agree. It's definitely a telling of the landscape that we're in right now, where escapism is very important for most people now, and I think it is, especially when going to the movie theater, right? Because movies are expensive, especially if you have a family or if you're a date, a couple, or whatever the case is. So you pick and choose more clearly now, especially with streaming and everything like that. You have so many choices to watch nowadays. So if you actually go out to the theater, you're going out for a purpose because, like, I don't want to think of anything that's happening right now. I just want to get lost in 2 hours of this like grand spectacle of a thing that is going to be entertaining and fun or whatever the case is. And you can see from the box office numbers, the movies that are the ones that are hitting it are those grand spectacle, fantastical type of movies. This past weekend was that Megan, that horror movie, is doing gangbusters, and I saw it, and it's not a great movie. It's really ridiculous, but I could see why people like it because again, it's taking yourself out of your current situation, and you're just having a good rompy time at the movie theater, right? So yeah,
We'll get into the letterboxed lists, but
yeah,
it kind of makes sense that with the quantum mania of what's been the most
mm-hmm.
popular franchise, and then some of the most popular movies are going to be Everything Everywhere All at Once, where there's interdimensional travel. How do we put that?
Yeah,
I don't remember that phrase. Um, Top Gun, and where you're in this guy Avatar 2, where you're going to a different world. Like these are, and then there's still a bunch of others. Like we could go this down the list where you're just
yeah,
in a totally different place or world. Um, and even Glass Onion, where it is the only pandemic-y movie that I'm seeing where there's like masks involved, that's near
mm-hmm.
the top of the list. And they go to a remote island,
Oh yeah,
still on planet Earth, but they immediately solve that problem of
yeah.
pandemic problems, and then they're just on an island the rest of the time. So I think that you could read between the lines there for sure.
Yeah. Basically, they did what we all wanted to do during that time. It
Yeah,
was to get out and be with people we love and all that, and just like not think of whatever's happening. Well,
yeah.
speaking of Glass Onion, did Janelle Monáe say anything that was unique to her experience or to her character, or anything that you found interesting during the? I'm assuming she did like a Q&A afterwards, right?
She did a Q&A and it was curated with
Okay,
somebody. So it wasn't the audience questions, which sometimes
which
are
is
the most
good.
painful
Which is
things.
good.
Yeah, sometimes those are terrible, but every now and then you'll actually get a really interesting moment where someone
Sure.
asks something and then they're caught off guard and they have to have like a more human moment. So
Yeah.
this one was a little bit of a manicured experience, but I also am hesitant to spoil anything because it's a murder mystery. But
Oh, okay.
talking about the development of her character in the
Yeah.
movie was actually it was really fun to hear her talk about the work that went into that. And I hadn't realized before, but she has a background in writing for the stage early in her career before
Oh,
she
I
even went
didn't know that.
into
Okay.
music, and she was in New York for a little bit doing so. It makes sense. Her music is very cinematic, and she's
Yeah.
then she at some point went through like her career, just how lucky she's been, which is one of the most like the moment where like everyone applauded was she's talking about she doesn't take this for granted at all, and she had her. It was really nice seeing her just a total badass who might be winning a supporting actress soon. And the audience was definitely on her side and loving her kind of attitude
Nice.
towards everything. But not wrong, like Moonlight and Hidden Figures and this movie, like she's had a very
Oh
charmed
yeah.
film career,
Hmm.
especially for someone who goes music to movies. And yeah, that was it was really nice seeing her in person in a crowd and watching this movie and her performance in particular get love in a
Yeah.
real time in the middle of all this awardsy kind of stuff, which is I'm guessing why they were putting that on.
Oh yeah.
It was really fun.
Yeah. This is also the time where there's a lot of for your consideration screenings happening right now. So I'm sure that was definitely one of them. Um and yeah, like what was it that I saw recently? 13 Lives. I saw the Ron Howard movie 13 Lives for it was for your consideration screening at Museum of Moving Image, and he was there, and he was there talking about the film and everything like that. So this is definitely that time when they're really trying their hardest to push for
Yep.
awards consideration and everything there. Last thing about Glass Onion, then we can move into the movie I saw. Um, how did it feel watching it with a crowd in a theater? Did it
Yeah,
change your
you were.
experience?
Yeah, you saw it in a crowd, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Originally, yeah, I'd heard other people talk about how it is a much more enjoyable experience. Which for
Yeah.
me, focusing on the murder mystery of it all, it is easier at home where I can, if I need to, like pause, if there's any distractions or whatever. Whereas in a theater, I'm usually like just so overwhelmed, I don't even know what's happening sometimes. Like
Yeah.
I was overall, if especially if someone's gonna watch it and like multitask, it's not one you can do the dishes and put the movie on.
Hmm.
Uh, it was also very enjoyable to hear people laughing at certain moments that I thought were funny, and all of those things were better. And then shock moments were interesting. The only kind of thing I didn't love about it is everyone had had a lot of time to see it by now.
Yeah.
If they even if they'd missed the original theatrical run of it, because it's a murder mystery, it makes sense to see it two, three times. But there's kind of that feeling of like people weren't laughing. Maybe half the people were laughing and half of them weren't, but it was because they already heard the joke or they weren't
Uh,
shocked the way half the audience was. So it was kind of watered down of a
sure.
theater experience because it had been on Netflix for so long. That said, overall, still funner to see it with half the people reacting in real time or so than
Yeah.
not at all. So that was fun.
Cool. No, that's great. That's awesome. No,
Yeah.
I'm glad you're able to see that because that was definitely looked like it would have been an interesting event. For me, like I mentioned, I did see Megan recently. Not much to talk about there, to be honest with you. It was a silly, goofy movie, more on the silly, goofy side than horror, to be honest with you. But I think that's also why it became so popular because of the PG-13 rating. More people had a chance to watch it, and I think people
Mm.
who are not so much into horror appreciate it more because it was something they could laugh at and they could like enjoy and be entertained like that. So I think that's why a lot of people are going nuts over this movie. But I did see that. But the movie I did want to talk about is it's funny. You saw Women Talking, and then I mentioned it earlier. I had a chance to finally watch She Said because She
Uh-huh.
Said is now streaming on Peacock. It's streaming on Peacock, and it was definitely one of the movies from last year that I wanted to check out, especially because again, it's such a big topic now. Especially with the whole Me Too movement, and very timely with the recent um, court thing with Harvey Weinstein about his arraignment and all that stuff that's currently happening in real time right now. So if you don't know, She Said is the story about the two New York Times reporters that helped break the news story about the sexual abuse that Harvey Weinstein is being accused for when you had all of these people, these actresses and people who were formerly in Hollywood coming out to speak up against him and how they did their best to break the story to tell the truth of what's going on. And that's really what launched into the giant Me Too movement that happened during that time. And it was an interesting movie. Um, I know you are a big fan of, and I'm trying to pull up her name right now. Um, Carrie Mulligan. I know you're a big fan of Carrie Mulligan. Zoe Kazan is in it too. Um, some of the things I found interesting about the movie was that they actually had the actresses that came out and spoke out in the movie.
Mm.
So Ashley Judd was in there, and some other actresses and former Hollywood people were in the movie
Mm.
as themselves, playing the roles and all that stuff like that. Um, the creepiest thing, and I think the thing that really hit home, was they actually used an actual recording that was recorded of an interaction with Harvey Weinstein and an Italian model. And this was like they played at least 5 minutes of it or more.
Whoa. Wow.
And it was just him constantly pressuring her to join him in his hotel room and sit down and all that stuff like that. And she kept refusing and refusing, and he kept pushing. And then you hear him at one point saying, well, then if you don't ever talk to me again, and you're never going to hear from me like that, and you're done. So, and I think what happened is that she came with a recorder to record that conversation because she was already been approached like this multiple times. So it was really, really, it was almost like a movie slash documentary. It kind of like how they do like those like kind of expose documentaries, because like literally they had scenes of just hallways in a hotel room as they were playing the audio with the subtitles of the audio playing for like more than 5 minutes. And it was very cringy the whole time. And it was really fascinating how they used that real life aspect in the movie to kind of put more, I guess, of the importance of what's happening there.
From what I'm seeing, and I'm just doing like a quick Google, is that it was basically like someone mimicking his voice. So it wasn't his actual voice, or are you, because it was the actual text, something like that, and someone reading it, or am I misunderstanding what
So
what
from
what
from
was
what
going on in the
I've
movie?
so from what I've heard or what I've read before was that it was an actual recording. Now, if it wasn't and they had someone mimic his voice, then it is
Right.
the actual word for word conversation that he had with this lady. Regardless of what it is, it was very, very crazy. And the way they did it, it made it feel real. Like really, I guess the main point here, it really hammered home the significance of what's happening here and all that. Um, which is also some of its downfalls too in the movie, where I felt like there were way too many moments where they hammered it, they threw it in your face, the sexism and sexualism of a lot of things that are happening. You see the reporters getting harassed on the street sometimes, catcalls and all this kind of stuff like that. The reporter Megan Toey that Carrie Mulligan portrays also helped break the story of Donald Trump and his things that he said about women in the news. And she was getting calls like death threats and all that stuff like that. So they really threw that in your face in the beginning, just like, all right, people suck, men are terrible, all that kind of stuff like that. My main problem with the movie is that the two reporters, as they were pursuing this story, I felt like it felt very shallow. Like I didn't feel that they were pursuing this story for the sake of getting that proper message out for to speak up for women. It felt like they were just doing it for the story. And I don't know if that was intentional and if that was really the case at the time, and then maybe they came into full realization later on once the news broke and seeing how it affected so many people. That's when they finally realized the gravitas of it all. But it felt very shallow. It felt like they just wanted to scoop. It's like TMZ. It felt like they just wanted to do like a TMZ job and all that stuff like that. So I felt like it felt very flat, and I felt like the motivation and the whole motivation for them to break the story was just not the right intention in the beginning. And again, for all I know, maybe that was the case, before. And then later on, it became a bigger deal and all that stuff like that. So it was a pretty decent movie and a good watch. Again, one of those movies where I do feel like more people should be watching it, but it's a hard watch. I mean, like we just talked about escapism and all that kind of stuff like that. This is not a movie that people are going to want to watch right now for sure. But it is an important movie for people to watch eventually. Because again, especially if you're not familiar with the whole Harvey Weinstein story and all that, it's something that really helps hammer home the significance of it all there. So
Yeah, that's gonna be one of those. You watched it on your own at home on the
yeah.
streamer? Okay,
Mhm.
I'm gonna ask for your Peacock password later. We'll do that off air though. Don't worry.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
it is it's one of those. Yes, Carrie Mulligan, big fan of a lot of her movies, and then Zoe Kazan also is a low key fave of mine.
mhm,
Um, it seems from what I can tell, both the movies we're talking about aren't getting much traction, and both
yeah,
are very pointedly on message. From my understanding, it seems like there are other reasons why this one isn't getting as much traction, and I obviously you never know, and there could be a lot of bias at play there.
mhm,
My gut says people going into it were saying this will be a big movie. This will be huge when this drops. A lot of people were talking about it like this will be an awards movie. And it's like as people started to see it, it was like, okay, maybe this isn't that movie. Maybe
yeah,
this isn't the All the President's Men or Spotlight in recent years
mhm.
of current day. Um, okay, I'm glad you saw it. I will.
Yeah,
I'm assuming I'll see it at some point, and right now there'll be a lot of catching up to do, and I'm curious. Every now and then, the Oscars just throws a huge surprise out there.
yeah,
Movies about movies where they do some reckoning. These are things that get talked about on stage a lot at the Oscars. That's for sure.
yep,
Um, and so, yeah, that's interesting. Thank you for the review. Just like women talking.
yeah.
Now I know better what I'm getting into.
Yeah, no, that's why I thought it was interesting that you saw women talking. I saw she said, and again, it goes along the lines of these are movies with very important messages that aren't getting talked a lot about right now. And again, another movie like I mentioned before, like Till too. Till was like supposed to be one of the movies that I think a lot of people were expecting to hear Oscar buzz around, especially with the lead actress there, but we haven't heard anything about it really.
Yeah.
And again, I think it goes in along the lines with a lot of the things that we're saying. But let us know in the comments about these movies. Are these the kind of movies that you're looking forward to watching now, or are you amongst the many that you know what I just don't want to deal with this right now? You know, this is stuff that's way too real. I need to escape, so I rather watch something that will kind of take my mind off of things because that is something curious to like really think about when it comes to movie going right now these days. So let us know your thoughts in the comments and all that stuff like that. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. But before we continue, I wanted to quickly talk about Bulletproof Coffee. Bulletproof Coffee is my favorite coffee of choice to start off my mornings with. Why? Because it's clean coffee. What does that mean? Well, one, there are no chemicals in it. Why? Because they go through this multi-step process of making sure that all of their beans are fully clean and free of any chemicals so that when you get the beans delivered to you, it is the pure beans, the pure coffee, the goodness that you've been wanting, the taste, the flavor, and the nutritional value as well, without worrying about any added chemicals or anything else put into the mix there. It also doesn't have that weird acidic taste that some coffees give you. I don't know how about you, but for me, some coffees kind of give me that weird sensation in my stomach, makes me a little burpy, and it kind of drags me down a little bit instead of really waking me up, which is something that I need from my coffee every day. Bulletproof also offers a lot of keto-friendly snacks and supplements, anything that you need to kind of add to your everyday nutritional needs, add to your diet, pretty much transforms the way you feel every day. So for a limited time, if you use this code on that you see on the screen right now, Low Key Geek, all caps one word, you can get 15% off your order. So what is it better than that, right? Check out the link in the description of this episode. Use this code, get yourself your discount, and make your mornings a little bit more bulletproof with Bulletproof Coffee. Now, back to the episode. Let's move into our main topic. Again, recap. Letterboxd again came out with their 2022 year in review. Now, again, if you're not familiar with Letterboxd is basically the movie lovers app where you can log your movies, you could rate movies, give your reviews on the movies, and it's a community of movie lovers, cinephiles. You definitely have a lot of your elitist movie fans on this app. We
Oh
have
yeah.
one here for sure. And then you have one that is like semi there, but also more on the casual side, like me. So you will notice that a lot of their lists, how they're curated and how they are, how the ratings stack up between the elitist cinephile to a more general populace and all that. And that's why they split highest rated movies and most popular movies, right? In essence, this is what the Oscars were thinking of doing, right? At one point, I'm glad they haven't, or who knows? We don't know. They're always going to be changing their minds on something. But I guess this is how it separates the critics from the movie, the general audience, and all that stuff like that, right? So definitely want to go through some of these lists because some of the things here are very exciting, especially with the recent Golden Globes and awards ceremonies that are happening right now. This could help kind of dictate possibly where things may be going or maybe not. Or maybe this will just help us realize that there's so many other things that we haven't seen that maybe we should actually check out. And I think, Blake, you and I, we had that conversation before we went live talking about that stuff. So um, let's start off with highest rated overall according to Letterboxd. And again, what Letterboxd does is that they gather all the ratings, all the amount of times the movie is watched, and all that stuff like that, and they kind of use their own algorithm to come up with this list. So, 1 to 5, we have at number 1, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Number 2, we have Kadaisi Vivasai. I think that's how you pronounce it. If not, I apologize. Number 3, you have Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Number 4, you have Mars One. Number 5, you have After Sun. From 6 to 10, you have Burning Days, Argentina 1985, Triple R, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and The Banshees of Inisherin. Um, Outside of the top 10, you have Tar that comes in at number 12, which again is the most talked about movie in recent months. So that's something that definitely worth mentioning there. Blake, what stands out for you in this list of highest rated overall?
First of all, I consider myself one of the Letterboxd elitists you talked about. The main thing that stood out was the number of these I have not seen. So
Yeah.
number 2, Carisi Vivasi. The fact that I had not even that had not come across my radar. And then we talked about before Mars One being the number 4 rated
Hmm.
movie. And that's on Netflix, apparently, and I just never even knew that it existed whatsoever.
Yeah.
There's a good like 3 or 4 more that a couple of which I'm familiar with Puss in Boots. That being number 9, I'm hoping that's like a Paddington 2 shit posting, but also people are saying like, no, it actually is good, and so it gets even higher because they were so surprised that they actually liked it. I might give Puss in Boots a shot. I still haven't given Paddington 2 a shot. Please don't tell any
No,
Letterboxd film
same
fans.
with me actually. Yeah.
Okay, maybe we shouldn't say that out loud. It's
Oh well,
terrifying.
too
People
late.
realize that I'm a fraud. Um, to me, my favorite thing, and this is why when we talked about Everything Everywhere way back when it came out in limited
Hmm.
release, we were saying, how do you think this will do come awards time? And I was like, I could see it being nominated for all these things, but I don't
Yeah.
know if it will just be one of those movies that's just a month later, didn't really get much traction. Turns out it got the traction. It
Oh
got the
yeah.
box office numbers. It made bank, and it is beloved. There's now everyone has seen it roughly, and
Hmm.
so there's some people who don't love it as much. So we watched the score drop on it. There was a moment after it came out where it was the number 1 all-time movie on Letterboxd, and it was
Yeah.
the first one to beat out Parasite was up doing that, and then it beat out Parasite, who had been doing that. And
Hmm.
that was amazing to watch movies that came out during Letterboxd's lifetime because forever it just been this old guard. I think the other newest movies that they have in their top 10, 20 is like Spirited Away 2001, The Dark Knight 2008. Letterboxd was invented in 2011. So you basically had legacy the whole
Yeah.
time until Parasite and then Everything Everywhere are doing that. Now Everything Everywhere is number 15 spot. I think that's a fine place for it to be. It's really hard to be mad about the 15th greatest film of all time. But the amount of times that a movie comes out, we were talking about It's a Wonderful Life earlier, where it doesn't get its roses while it can, or
Mhm.
This might be one of those, it's gonna lose Best Picture to name it just some one of these movies, and people go, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years from now, that's one of the biggest, most offensive choices they've ever made.
Yeah,
That kind of thing can still happen, but we're at least in that category, not the, "Oh, it's a cult favorite," that 10 years from now, you have a movie night and everyone goes, "Oh my gosh, why have I never seen that?"
right.
Love seeing it get love. Um, the Seeing it get awards traction right now has been fun, and I I the hardest part for me on all that is Michelle Yeoh versus Kate Blanchett,
Oh
and
my
I have the
god.
biggest soft spot in my heart for Kate
Ah,
Blanchett and always have, and on
same,
this movie, I have the
same.
biggest soft spot for Michelle Yeoh in this
Yep,
movie and this character.
yep.
I think no matter what happens, I will be disappointed, but I won't be angry unless it's not either of them on the big awards. And if that's the case, it's just like I can't, because the fact is just that two-person race, and my heart couldn't be more with either one of them than it is.
Dude,
This is fun to watch this be the number one.
yeah, I'm already dreading our Oscar ballot time because that's going to be the category that I'm going to be like really. You see all the grays I have now. I mean, it's going to end up being full on gray. I think after that, because that is going to be the toughest decision I'm going to have to ever make in any of the Oscar balloting that I've ever done before.
Both playing women who have marital struggles, who are too hard on the people in their lives, who don't show love. No, I mean, these characters don't have a ton in common. It's interesting though, because one of them is like everybody hates Lydia Tarr,
Right.
and
Hmm.
everybody loves Michelle Yeoh's character, at least by the end of it. Like
Sure.
it's,
Yeah.
but damn, man. I've been listening to this podcast called Sundays with Kate, and then for years I've been in the crew of like Kate Blanchett fanboys, to where like it became a
Hmm.
meme in certain group threads where like everything would be a Kate Blanchett meme from me.
Yeah.
It's like part of my identity is I'm a Kate Blanchett fanboy, whatever group of people that is. But then Everything Everywhere All at Once had my heart, and I immediately
Oh
put it
my
in like
god.
my top. I now have an 11 movie top 10 list of my all
Hmm.
times because I just can't take that one out. I'm not sure which one to displace yet, but it's like the way we reacted to it, and that same passion that we had is held for all the friends I've had who've seen it, and now
Oh
we're going
yeah.
into almost a year after it came out, and it is very beloved, and every person involved, Michelle Yeoh, um, the directors, the Daniels,
The Daniels. Yeah.
the yeah, and then I don't want to talk about the recent award show, but some of the speeches that folks are giving,
Hmm.
and everyone's attitude about it, and them being so warmed by the film they're in, it's lovely to see.
Oh
You
yeah.
Anytime there's that like Parasite, where it was like that group was getting all the attention from everyone else, and
Hmm.
they were kind of like it was like you see it in sports sometimes, that like underdog feeling, but they all get along and there's that chemistry, and seeing that everyone's rooting for him. So this could be a really fun one for sure.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. And the main thing that I love is that for a movie that came out really early last year, to get the recognition it's getting now, you don't see that a
Yeah.
lot. You really don't, especially like in past years and all that. So I love the fact that it's getting that love that it's getting. Also, it should be noted here that again, you could tell the difference with this list because most of like what is it? One, two, three, four. In their top 10, I saw five of the movies listed here, and the rest I have not seen. Argentina 1985 won international film at the Golden Globes last night. I think most people were shocked by that, because people were expecting Decision to Leave or the Waterfront, the war movie on Netflix. Those were like kind of like the
All Quiet on the
two.
Western Front.
All Quiet on the Western Front. Sorry,
I need to see All
Waterfront.
Quiet on the
I
Waterfront, where
have
it's
to see
Marlon
that too.
Brando's.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it could have been a
um,
soldier. Okay,
I
what?
could have been the soldier.
Oh my
Why
gosh.
you
Oh
shot
my
me?
gosh. Oh my
Or
gosh.
Triple
That's
R,
so
or even
good.
or even Triple R, right? I think a lot of people were thinking, oh, maybe Triple R has a chance for this, but Argentina 1985, I think a lot of people were not expecting that, and I think most people who are not really big movie watchers are probably like, what movie is that? Like I've never even heard of that movie, right? So it's interesting to see that at least within the Letterboxd community, that this was already a movie that they had on their radars, right? I mean, we were talking about before going live, the Kadaisi Vivasai. We've both never heard of that movie. And the fact that it's more popular than Triple R, we were like, why haven't we heard of this yet? And we were getting so many recommendations of movies to watch from everybody. I don't recall anyone mentioning this movie as part of the recommendations, unless I missed it. Or again, we were getting so inundated with so many recommendations that I kind of lost track at a certain point. I was keeping a list. That list has like 100 movies on it by now. So I'm just like, I'm never going to get through all of this. But there are some definitely interesting things. After Sun has been getting a lot of buzz within the film circuits. So no surprise there.
Amazing, amazing movie. And it's one of those, like, I didn't necessarily enjoy it until afterward
Hmm.
and some of the dialogue around it, but I could see why that's one of the most highly rated movies for
Yeah,
sure. I don't see it like catching fire the way that some of the others do. So
yeah,
I'm curious, like on the popularity rating, like how far down it is. But for the just the highest rated category, that's an
yeah.
amazing movie. But it's one of those that I almost didn't even see. I just kind of like took a chance at the movies that
Sure.
night. Like I'm just gonna see something,
Yeah,
and I'm glad I saw that one because of the traction it's getting. And it was very, very moving.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think
Now I think I need to see all the rest of these that are on this list that I haven't seen yet.
I mean, After Sun is definitely one I want to watch because I mentioned this to you last time. It's one of the ones that I haven't had a chance to see that I really want to see. It's just not on any streaming platform right now, from what I can remember. But yeah, but now with Argentina 1985 getting the attention it's getting now, I definitely want to see that. Mars One, I'm so curious about that now, especially since it's been on Netflix this whole time. Um, it's surprising to me how many people are loving the Banshees of Inisherin. Because it is a kind of, it's not a movie for everybody. And the type of humor in it is a different type of humor that I think a lot of people get
Mhm,
thrown off by. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And I think the
mhm,
chemistry between the two actors there is fantastic. And I know they've been together on screen before, but I love, again, there's something about being isolated on a small island where you have people that are really relying on these friendships and these relationships to really, live together and all that. And how one small thing can break things and drive people nuts and mad and just, go a different way, right? I loved how this movie kind of portrays a lot of that stuff. But yeah, it is a lot of dark humor in there. So I am actually surprised, but also happy at the same time. There are this many people who really enjoy this movie, and I think it's well deserved. If not just for the performances alone, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see the closer we get to the Oscars, which one of these on the list will be more considered. It's usually hard to tell. I think now with SAG and DAG getting their rewards ceremonies coming soon, that may paint a better picture because this is more industry folk giving votes to the ones they feel were the top performances. So I'm really, really curious to see what's going to happen there. But any last things on this list here before we move on to the next one?
No, I mean, Tar being so high in the conversation has been nice to see also.
Yeah.
I mean, that one to me was one of the most effective movies of the year. Banshees, I personally liked, although it's kind of one of those like I really enjoyed it, and I'm not going to necessarily root for it on the top prizes. It was like very enjoyable, and it didn't necessarily move me greatly. RRR is one I'm going to be rooting for it no matter what, and will never be mad if it does well anywhere.
Mhm.
Seeing Natu Natu get shortlisted on the Oscar songs was heartening. But I before we move on, just like taking a moment that Everything Everywhere All at Once
Oh,
is
hell yeah.
this. I know that we're talking a lot about Oscar stuff, but like being the number one movie on Letterboxd at the end of the year, and also most recent and the 15th all time, like that's pretty badass. That's
Oh, I
I
love it.
like the world. I like this version of the timeline in the universe of quantum
Mhm.
whatever, where this is what happens here.
Oh,
So
yeah. And
it's
and
hard
I
to be
love
too mad at.
I love being I love the fact that we were part of that too. that we saw this happen. Like we were like kind of like in the forefront of it, and we knew in our hearts and hearts that this was going to be a special movie. And we saw it happening. We saw people gushing over it. You know, each time our review and episode were being looked at, and the comments we were getting, and the people saying why they love the movie so much. I mean, it was so great to see. That's why it's a special movie for sure in a year that is very unique as far as the movie landscape is concerned. And if anything, we'll tell you that that will definitely be the next list we're going to be looking at, because the next list we're looking at is considered to be the most popular overall. And boy, what a difference it is from the last list we looked at. Because again, this is really more of the general audience, the more casual to maybe higher than casual moviegoer. These are the movies that they were fond of and they loved and rated the highest of the year. So, number one, you have the Batman, which is fascinating there in itself. Number two, again, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Not surprised about that. Number three, you have Nope. Number four, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, and Top Gun Maverick rounds it out at number five. Then you have six, Glass Onion, Thor, Love and Thunder, X, Barbarian, and then The Northman to close out the top 10 list here. So, the one thing I'll say that stands out to me the most is that you have possibly two of the worst Marvel films to come out in recent years making it to this top 10 list. I know you hated Doctor Strange. You were not happy with
Mm-hmm.
that movie. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that's number four on here, it baffles my mind. I didn't hate it that much, but I really hated Thor: Love and Thunder, and the fact that that's number seven
Well,
is bizarre to me.
we're just doing popularity though, so this is just going to
Sure.
be what people seeing it.
Yeah.
So I, I'm curious at what point, because like if this was in game year, in game is number one.
Hmm.
I have to assume. I don't know the
Oh
raw
yeah.
data. I have to assume it would beat the Batman.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
The Batman is partially here because it just had such a wide berth at the box office and was released early in the year, and there's no real competition, and we were still skeptical about movie theaters at that point. Like this was one of
Yeah.
the first big, oh, people are actually going to movies of the year.
Yep.
Um, I I think it's actually points to that Marvel isn't doing well, that these are lower on the list than they would otherwise be when you're talking about, at least in the top two of the top few are Marvel movies. And
Mm.
they're definitely losing steam. And after Guardians and Quantum Mania, Ant-Man stuff, this might be like the beginning of the end, or it might just be the end of the lull period of
Yeah.
phase whatever before things kick up again. But I'm not personally surprised that those were lower on the list.
I think it goes back to again what we talked about escapism and spectacle. Like these are definitely the highest movies that fall within those categories. You know, these are the movies that people really felt like they could escape from everything. You know, and these are like, you know, the fantastical type of movies. You know, these are and regardless of whatever given year, horror is always going to be number one. Horror does so well no matter what. The fact that you have one, two, three, possibly you could consider Doctor Strange a little bit on the horror side. Four
Oh yeah.
categorized horror movies on the top 10 list. I'm not
I
shocked
mean,
by that at
Northman
all.
isn't that far off, and when you put
No.
Glass Onion in the murder mystery category, I'm not saying that these are horror by
Yeah,
any means,
yeah,
but I'm just
yeah.
saying they are in like the murder or the Viking revenge movie where it's just
Right.
real damn bloody. There's some moments in there that are like belong in a horror movie for
Sure.
sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so does anything stand out to you from this list here?
I'm surprised that the Batman is number one, and I'm actually very, very surprised by that.
Mhm.
That it's not Top Gun Maverick and it's not Avatar 2, and that Avatar 2 isn't on the top 10 list here.
True. Very true.
Maybe release date and people not having seen it more times is
Mhm.
part of the story there. I'm not sure if there's anything considering, do they how long a movie has been out and do they help fudge the numbers in any way at all? But
Yeah.
if this is just pure, these are the most watched movies. Avatar 2 not being on there doesn't feel correct because of the box office numbers we're looking at.
Yeah.
The but regardless, we'll take this list at face value. The Batman is number one. That was actually a good movie. That's one
Mhm.
where we saw it and we're like, yes, this is actually the movie that the very casual superhero fan won't like. And we talked about how leaving the theater and hearing people say, I didn't get it was
Yeah.
like a common response. So this is actually a pretty damn good end of the year. Most it's not, it's not a Fast and Furious movie, which I do enjoy those, but and it's definitely not like whatever Triple X to Vin Diesel, who gives a crap, phone it in, or Grown Ups 4 or whatever. Like this is actually a pretty solid number one
Yeah.
movie to have here with a really great cast.
Mhm.
I'm glad that people saw it and at least appreciated it, because there is another thing that happens where someone will see a movie and then it'll get a big opening weekend and then it just fizzles out because they go tell their friends
Yeah.
like, you didn't really need to see that on. That's not the case with the Batman.
No, and I think it just came out at a good time too, because I don't think there was much out during that time when it came out, right? So I think it led to people going back and forth and like constantly rewatching. I think one of the lists they have here is obsessively rewatched, and I think Batman was also number one on that list.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not surprised at all, really. But you're right; it is fascinating to see that Avatar 2 is not on here. Black Adam
Now
is
that
not on here.
Oh yeah,
You
that's a
know,
sad one.
yeah.
The Avatar 2 of it, this is the only thing that makes sense to me. The Avatar 2 viewer on average is not the Letterboxd movie
No,
super fan
no,
on
you're
average.
right.
So that's
You're
got
right.
to be why.
Yeah, yeah,
A lot of the Because if you look at the like list of best movies all time, it's not going to be as many of the Shawshank, The Departed, like that kind of,
yeah,
even like the more casual beloved movies. Um, those A lot of those people don't even see it, or might not register it on theirs because they don't want it to be on their list of the movies that they went and saw in theaters.
yeah,
So I think that makes sense to me, because the box office would diverge from the Letterbox list in that way more than anything
right.
else.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Cool. So another thing that they did here is that they curated kind of list by category genre. Um, Blake, was there anything particularly you wanted to go over and review? Give your thoughts on?
My favorite one of here, which I've mentioned on our show before because it was a
Mhm.
special moment in my life, is on Comedy Special. That Rothaniel there is number one. And shout out Gerard Carmichael for having this special come out. He literally comes out himself. Is on SNL the next day.
Yeah.
I was there at the taping at the Blue Note, and it was a very special experience, and it's a very special.
Mhm.
Dude recently hosted the Golden Globes, which a year or two ago, I was the person who's like, everyone needs to be taking Gerard Carmichael seriously. He is as good as any legendary comedians, and he just didn't have the numbers or the amount of eyeballs. His TV show was really good, but didn't last too long, etc.
Yeah.
He's had a hell of a year, and at least it's represented at on the number one spot on this list. Which the other factoid to take from this list, the top three comedy specials of the year are all directed by Bo Burnham, an
That's
Oscar
crazy.
nominated, I guess, for
Yeah.
eighth grade for writing, I think. But
Yeah, I think it was
he
writing,
used to
yeah.
just be the dumb YouTube guy, the dumb YouTube comedian. So
Yeah.
Renee, my question is, when are our Oscars and Letterbox top three happening? Because I can't wait. That's amazing that Bo Burnham has all three of those for Gerard Carmichael's special, and then it's his own for number two. It's the second part of it's called the Inside Out takes. And then
Yeah.
the third one is for Kate Berlant's special, which I need to watch now even more than I did yesterday, apparently, since this list came out.
I think you and I, we just need to write some sort of script and, get that out in front of some people, film a short movie or something like that,
Sure.
because it's kudos to him. I mean, he is having
Word.
quite a great couple of years. Um, as far as Jared Carmichael is concerned, I was not familiar with him. And then when you recommended the HBO special, I watched it, obviously, because I wanted to see if I heard your laugh first of all, and I'm glad I did. I texted you immediately. I was so happy that I could point you out. But it was
Uh-huh.
such a
Yeah.
great special. It was really, really a touching and heartwarming special. And then I went backwards to watch his other specials, and I'm like, wow, this dude is really funny. Um, However, have you seen kind of the fallout from his hosting from last night?
I mean, I know that his comedy isn't for everybody, and people talking about how
Oh
some of
my
it was
god.
awkward. Was there more than that? Like, did something
Wow,
happen?
dude. People are and again, this is the internet, right? So take it for what you will. People are,
Uh-huh.
are calling for the return of Ricky Gervais, that he should have been the one doing these type of jokes because it would have landed
All,
better and all this kind
all
of
that
stuff
happened
like
when Ricky
that.
Gervais hosted is people called for Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. They
Exactly.
were actually the
It's
only
just,
ones that everyone liked.
it's a
Everyone else who's ever
cycle.
hosted any award show, everyone says that was sucked. It was better.
It's
Same
so
with like
ridiculous.
SNL. It was good back in
Yeah.
the old day. I couldn't give half a crap of what someone
Yeah.
tweets about the host of an award show.
Yeah.
No one has ever enjoyed an award show. That's not why we watch these things. You think we're happy when we're watching the Oscars and seeing someone like schmaltzily like do a monologue? I watched his monologue, and honestly, as far as stand-up goes, I was like, damn, that man did something he did on the stage in Nathaniel where he literally just sits down and
Hmm.
takes his sweet time with like full breaths and pauses between sentences.
Yeah.
And is it the kind of like he's playing with tension and awkwardness the way that an average TV film fan isn't going to love? Yeah, it's fucking brilliant to watch the man, but few of those jokes hit good. That was I at least on the monologue. That's all I've watched so far.
Sure.
I'm not going to take the Globe super seriously, right? Which I
No.
don't think anyone
No.
else is either. Which is the other reason I'm like, if you even put on the Golden Globes, like, are you really that mad at Gerard Carmichael? Like, you should be mad at yourself for putting on the Golden Globes on a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, people were, I don't, and that's
It's
meaningless
it's
to
just
me.
it's
And
just
Gerard Carmichael's
it's
still the fucking man.
yeah, it's just hilarious because again, it is the same shit that we see all the time. It's like anytime that someone tries to be a little bit daring, a little bit different, they think, oh, the hell with that guy. Like we should have let the other guy do it and all that. But it's funny. The most common comment I saw was, "Who's Jared Carmichael?" Like I think a lot of
Also,
people
it's
just
Gerard
didn't.
for the record, which you're
Gerard, sorry.
just would know. I
Yeah,
mean, which is part of the thing I'm talking about. Where like
yeah,
even a year ago, he is like a comedian's comedian. He's known to be a great
yeah,
comedian. He's released things that are highly reviewed and rated and critically successful, but never quite had that mass appeal. He had a show on
yeah,
NBC, like a
yeah.
network TV show that everyone I talked to saw was like, that show was amazing. One of my favorite all time TV shows. And yet it didn't last that long. And I don't think he's ever going to have that proper universal appeal
Mhm.
that I don't want to. I'm going to get more elitist now the more I talk, but there have been award show hosts who are very, very popular, and they're also really good at making silly faces and fart jokes and stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's if to be a great comedian isn't always to be the best lowest common denominator guy who makes people laugh. If you
Mhm.
want that, then just like I mean, do we want to talk about Jackass Forever being represented on the Letterboxd list? I don't know if you want to move on from to another genre, but I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting.
No, I mean, but hey, Jackass Forever was a great movie. I mean, that was like
Great.
halfway through the
Godfather,
year, we said it was
Godfather
like our
Part
top
Two,
five, right? So
Jackass. Yeah, that was a shitty first half of the year, dude. I regret. I'm gonna just change the tune just for the hell of it, just for no good reason. Was it good for what it was? Yeah, it was a really good ass and dick joke movie for sure. There was actually
hey,
a high quality version of that. I'm not even being sarcastic. Like it
yeah, of
was really good at that. Did it make me feel things I didn't expect to feel watching a Jackass movie? Yeah. Was it still a Jackass movie? Yes, it absolutely
course it
was.
was. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we can move on. Some of the other categories that I wanted to point out real quick here is highest rated horror, because that is a genre that I've been getting more and more into. And on this list are actually several movies that you and I both saw. So,
Oh yeah.
number one, you have Pearl, which I haven't seen yet, but I've been hearing nothing but good things about. X is something I did see, and I did like that a lot. I thought it was well done. Plus,
When
Jenna
those are
Ortega was in
related,
there. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Pearl, I
which
think
now it's kind of
is
like a number one if you put them together in that kind of way, where that dude's just
exactly.
dominating that category.
Yeah. and he has the sequel coming out soon, which is supposed to close out the trilogy there. So it's amazing how, in such a short period of time, he was able to create this trilogy out of something so simple, right? So, but Nope is number two. Bones and All is number three. That made your top 10 of the year list.
Mhm.
The Menu made my top 10. Barbarian, I did think that was one of the better horror movies from last year. Number six, I do want to talk about this briefly. You Won't Be Alone. This was one of those movies that I feel I was duped with because in the marketing, they really heavily promoted Noomi Rapace as being part of this movie. She appears in this movie for like 5 minutes, and that's it. So I felt like this was one of those like bait and switch type of movies. I'm actually shocked this many people like this movie. The fact that it's this highly rated from last year. Because other than when she was on screen, it was just okay. It was just like an okay horror movie. It wasn't something that I considered to be anything to really write home about. But then, like we mentioned X, Fresh, which is on Hulu. Bodies, which is something you were able to see. I haven't seen that yet. And then Saloom. Um, don't know what that movie is, but that is number 10 on the list here. Anything you wanted to touch on? I know Bones and All, that was your on your top 10 for
And
last
Nope
year.
was too. I mean,
And
no
Nope, yeah.
less.
Yeah.
We talked about the Menu, but the fact that I've seen that many horror movies, I'm like kind of just happy because this is a genre I do not fuck
Yeah,
with.
for
And I'm
sure.
seeing the more low key ones, right? Like Nope and Bones and All and the Menu. These aren't like, you know, monster chewing woman up with teeth and like spitting them out into a ghost. I don't even know what happens in horror movies, dude. Shit freaks me out too bad. I can't watch them. A
Yeah.
woman crawling on the ceiling while singing a song about Catholicism. Like,
Right.
well, I don't know how people watch this shit.
Yeah, it's
Not that it's not good artistically. This list actually makes me want to see Pearl and X for sure. But that happens all the time with like Hereditary
sure.
and those Midsommar, the
Mhm.
critically beloved horror movies that I'm probably just never going to be able to handle.
Yeah.
Um,
I
Maybe
would
we do that
say,
sometime. That's an episode idea. Is we get me to watch some horror stuff, and
oh,
then you.
dude,
But I also want to be prepped. I want you to like make recommendations, give me your advice on how to watch a horror movie, and like we just talk
that would
about
be
it because
great. We should have like a curated watch along series with you and horror movies.
you would also just have to stay at my place and make sure
Yeah.
I go to sleep that
No,
night
we'll
and
do
don't
this
just
in
like wander
person.
the
Oh
streets
yeah.
blackout. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Then
This
maybe
sounds like this would be a fun idea for sure. Yeah, I like
okay.
it.
Okay.
Now another list I wanted to go over real quick is highest rated sci-fi of 2022. This is the one where we could see where Avatar falls in. So you have Everything Everywhere All at Once, Night of the Coconut, which is something I've never heard of. You have Nope. It's funny that Nope is considered to be sci-fi and horror. You have After Yang, which is something that I talked a lot about. Here you go. Number five, Avatar: The Way of Water. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Prey, Shin Ultraman, Neptune Frost, and Brian and Charles. Brian and Charles was the movie I recommended to you because it was the guy
Oh
who
yeah.
created a robot to be his best friend. Um, I really want to see that movie, but I don't think it's streaming anywhere yet for some bizarre reason. But yeah, I think again, this is just like your typical. This is what the general populace likes to go out and watch and see. With some few movies that I've never heard of, which I'm very curious about. Anything stand out here for you?
Wait, are you talking about the populace liking to go see? Was that most popular sci-fi or the highest rated?
This is
'Cause
highest rated
okay.
sci-fi. Yeah.
That and usually when there's the ones where you and I, who are obviously super movie fans, haven't seen the movie or even heard of it, it's like, okay, this is because we're on Letterboxd and it's the highest rated. And
Right.
if you look at like the numbers of some of those versus what we might put on the list, it's like the 4,000 people saw the movie or
Oh, I'm
something like
sure.
that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't have many thoughts on sci-fi. No, there's a couple other like genre things that I think are a little bit interesting, but
Mhm.
it's not. That is also one of those that's your genre.
Yeah.
Kind of Forever being sci-fi.
I know
Like, I
that
know
is a
why
weird.
it is,
Yeah.
but I don't. I wouldn't put that in like the top two or three categories that movie is.
Yeah.
It, there's sci-fi things happening in it, but I don't think of it as like it's a. Is there even a superhero? Like, I guess that's all action adventure stuff,
That
and
would be
it's not
action
on that list.
adventure, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
like it's one
interesting.
of those
Okay.
weird things, like we talked about before too, where it's like this is one of the reasons I don't like the Golden Globes is because how they categorize certain things. It's like everything everywhere at once could be a drama, an action adventure, sci-fi, and it appears on all those lists. It's like all
Right.
right, like when do you get to a point where you have to separate some of these things? So it
Yep.
is very very interesting. The last genre list that I'll cover is animation, highest rated animation from last year. I'm very happy that Marcel the Shell with Shoes On made number one. So that is definitely one of my favorites from last year. You got Puss in Boots, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, a Japanese film, Inuo, Mad God, Intergalactic, which is that Kid Cudi animated thing on
Hmm.
Netflix. I heard
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people talking about it, but I haven't had a chance to see it yet. Turning Red, which you saw recently and you really, really enjoyed.
You did
Great
it.
movie there. Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie. The Bob's Burgers movie, which would have made my number one list if it wasn't for the 12 other movies that I watched. Um, and then Apollo 10 and a half, A Space Age Childhood, which is a movie you saw there on Netflix. So, um, no real standouts for me on this. Again, I talked so much about Marcel the Shell. We talked about Pinocchio, how much we loved and enjoyed that. Turning Red, I'm really glad you were able to see that. I know you saw Apollo 10 and a half. Anything here stand out? Or maybe is there anything on this list that maybe you want to see now that it's on this list?
Um, yeah. So animated is also one of those where like that's going to be the Renee specialty
Yeah.
category that you own more. But I do appreciate it. It's kind of similar to the horror movies list. Like when an animated movie does reach that high rating and popularity level,
Mhm.
those are usually that's when I'll usually pop in and see it. So I have seen more of these than I have per capita the average animated film, and it took me a long time
Mhm.
um, to get to Turning Red, for example. But
Right.
Pinocchio being high up there, I'm loving the love that movie is getting. Marcel being high up there is heartening, and it makes me think I need to rewatch it just because I it was an expectations problem going to see it the first time.
Mhm.
I'm also glad it beat out Puss in Boots because that's not the world I want to live in, where that like 18th Shrek movie is doing better than uh, Marcel original and Pinocchio, an original take on a classic. Um, I think this list is interesting overall. A couple things on there I know I'm never going to see. Bob Burger's movie, probably never ever. Turtles movie. I mean, that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Overall, I'm curious between Marcel and Pinocchio, who's the leader in the Oscars, and if it might be one of those where which I think happened last year with was it called Flea, where there's two
Mm.
artsier movies in the category, and then it gets split, and so then you have something like Turning Red possibly winning because of that. But
Yeah.
we have some more time to get to that conversation. For now, Marcel the Shell with shoes on, take those shoes and tap dance on them because you're a
Hell
winner,
yeah.
baby. You're a
That's
beautiful
right.
winner. Which Jenny Slate being on the there's another list on here which is the most watched actors and actresses of all time. And Jenny Slate being on that list, very heartening for me. Been a fan, saw her do stand up in Brooklyn way back in the day. Um, SNL alum, like just she's a personal fave of mine that I
Mhm.
she's had a couple movies she starred in. Oh yeah, saw her do a Q&A back in the day at Angelica for Obvious Child. Just huge crush and huge fan of like her brain and the quality of her work. So because I think she's in Everything Everywhere All at Once,
Yeah.
you're not familiar because she's not on screen in Marcel. She's not the human person. She's the
Mhm.
shell. But in Everything Everywhere, she's the dog kicker, dog thrower, dog
Yeah.
weapon person. And so now she's like one of the most watched
It's so
actresses
funny.
of the
Yeah.
year, even though before now, very few of her movies did business like that on that level.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, again, there's so many curated lists here from 2022. If you want to check it out for yourself, just go to Letterboxd, and that's boxd.com backslash 2022 to check out all of their lists and everything here. But before we close out the episode here, let's look at what their most anticipated movies of 2023 are. Because they have a list here. I guess this is like a mixture of staff and maybe they poll people, or is there a thing on Letterboxd where you could say that you are looking forward to watching films?
You added to your watch list, yeah. Which, like,
Got it.
just today, I added Isabel Sandoval's next movie, Tropical Gothic, to my watch list.
Okay.
And so, in theory, that's 2023, but some movies don't have dates on them yet, and I'm
Right.
assuming they curated that to a degree, but maybe not.
Okay.
Um, if it's fully undetermined. But these are the movies that are. I'm curious if any of these don't say 2023 on Letterboxd because once it has
Mhm.
a release date. But a lot of movies for later in the year, it's one of those we don't know yet what will be
Right.
out for sure. So I'm not quite
Right.
sure how that
Yeah.
part works, but it is definitely just being
Okay.
someone hit watch list.
Watch list. Oh, gotcha. Okay. So yeah, so I think a lot of these movies actually made our anticipated list for this year. Number one being Barbie. Like I said,
Barbie.
like I think that is the movie to keep an eye out on. I think it might surprise a lot of people. Number two is the second Spider-Man Spider-Verse movie. Then you have Oppenheimer, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Dune Part 2, Killers of the Flower Moon, which is I know one of your most anticipated, which
It's been my most anticipated for next
yeah,
year for 3 years now,
yeah,
dude. Put it out.
exactly.
Put the movie out. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
so ridiculous.
Oh,
The next
can't wait.
John Wick, Ant-Man Quantumania, Beau is Afraid is the new Ari Aster movie, the guy who directed Hereditary and Midsommar. So I am totally looking forward to this because it looks batshit nuts. And Indiana Jones 5 here. So anything stand out for you?
I mean, the fact that Wonka, the horny Willy Wonka Timothy Chalamet movie, is number 11 and not number 10, I find very offensive. Asteroid City, Wes Anderson is just after, which actually, this is interesting. On this list, if you click see full list for 2023,
Yeah,
Indiana Jones is actually lower.
it is.
We could dig into that a little bit, but you know what it is? I think it's saying 2023 and beyond. So this is exactly
Oh,
what we were talking about. Nosferatu,
okay.
apparently, Robert Eggers, who this last year did Northman, one of our
Yeah,
top 10 movies, has a movie Nosferatu, but it doesn't have the date determined. So that's where Indiana Jones gets bumped, something like that. What
interesting.
Letterboxd does have
Okay.
this problem, which all movie things do, is there's an untitled Steven Spielberg project, and that'll just kind of stay at the top of dude's IMDb for his whole career.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of which, IMDb, are you okay?
Oh my
Has
God.
anyone ever like they fell the fuck off, dude?
Man, those
IMDb
guys
used to be
haven't been
the
okay in a while.
only source for movies, and now they are the blockbuster of the source
Oh
for
yeah.
movies.
Oh yeah.
Anytime I go to their website, and it's like, "Do you want to open the app?" I'm like, "Whatever happens, do not open that app." I can't even stomach it. I was an early adopter for Letterboxd and was telling friends about it. I'm like, the main selling point is the UI is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
This interface on this website is so clean, and for people who
Yeah.
love a visual medium like movies, mwah, thank you so much for existing Letterboxd because before I was trying to organize my shit in IMDb and no one needs that in their life. So I'm also very glad we're not doing the IMDb year in
No.
review. I don't even know
No.
what they're up to or if they're still in the year like 1999 or something because
Their site is so
uh
painful. Yeah, it's stuck in the old days of the internet, and it's so hard to navigate. It's so hard to find what you want to look for. Even when you're on the right page, it's hard to find what you're looking for. Plus, it's inundated with trolls in the comments and the ratings and all that stuff like that. It's just, and I feel like they got to the point where just they gave up. They gave up on it, and just like we'll keep it afloat and
so
we'll
sad.
update it, but we're not gonna like fix it. We're just gonna leave it, to the wolves or whatever. It's really sad.
Tragic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am curious if this list is getting updated in real time though, but if I narrow it down to 2023, Asteroid City is number 10 and Indiana Jones is right after that.
Oh, I see that too.
Wonka
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
9. That's really interesting. Okay, so a
That
couple of
is
these are dropped.
Yeah,
Mario Bros. And Cocaine Bear not being there is kind of interesting. I don't know if we have time to get into what the hell those movies are going to be like. Napoleon is really low compared to where I thought it would be. That's one that is very exciting, but also kind of like this might be the worst big swing of all time, or it might
sure.
be another Ridley Scott Joaquin Phoenix epic from their Gladiator days.
I
I
think
don't have.
it goes to
Yeah,
like what you were saying before. It's who logs it as their, like what they want to watch list, right? I feel like maybe not a lot of people do that. So it's kind of hard to get a full idea of what's really most anticipated with the entire letterbox community unless they
right.
actually call them out. Unless like, hey, here's a poll. Let us know what are your top 10 most anticipated. And then they curate this whole list together. So I mean, even just seeing the cast picks, the employee picks for what them anticipated, it's so different
Yeah.
um, from what we see here. And this is something we briefly talked about before we went live because we were kind of laughing at it. Because there are some movies on here like we were just like, what the hell is this movie? But yeah, Magic Mike is the most anticipated crew pick from Letterboxd. Along with, you see Creed 3, Night
Which
Bitch,
is
which,
real low on the
yeah,
fans list. I'm surprised by how it's like in the 30 plus spot. That's interesting.
yeah, it is definitely fascinating. But yeah, like I said, you could check out their full list and all these subgenre lists here on the Letterbox site. Again, a great website to really document and keep lists for your own viewings of movies and all that. Compare movies, look up movies, have fun with your friends. Curate lists. Share with your friends, all that kind of stuff like that. I still want to do episodes where we talk about your unique list you have on Letterboxd. So some of them are very very unique and all that. But is there any last things you want to mention about the Letterboxd 2022 year in review? What are you looking forward to 2023? All that stuff.
Is Triangle of Sadness okay? Because how many times did we say
Oh
those
my God,
three
yeah,
words? And I saw it on one list when I was like scrolling through all of them,
you're
and it was
right.
one category. I don't even remember which one right now, and it was like the sixth one.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near that, and that's when I expected, especially for a Letterboxd fan base, would be much
Mhm.
higher. I'm curious on the viability of that movie as we get to award season, because that's one of those you could have seen it being like a Best Picture contender or
Sure.
just nothing at all, and we might be trending towards nothing at all, at least on the Letterboxd, which doesn't, every little group has its own
Mm.
things that it's interested in, and
Yeah.
uh, I love like Letterboxd is my movie community though. This has been at least the most representative and the one where the ones that are high rated on here that I don't have on my movies I've seen it now are going on my watch list immediately.
Nice. Yeah. No, and again, I made it a resolution for myself that I am definitely going to be better at logging all the movies that I watch on Letterbox, be more active on that community. So make sure to check us both out on Letterbox. We can have conversations, share lists, all that stuff like that. Let's just show our love and appreciation for movies in general, because that's why we're here, right? This is why we do what we do. But with that being said, that is the end of movie time for this week. Before we head on out, I think we already know where we could find you, Blake. But if you just want to remind us very quickly, where can people find you online?
There's a little website called letterbox.com, and I've changed my screen name on there to one that is much easier. It's the one I like now. It's last name Wolf.
Nice.
WOLF. So it's just my last name is the last name Wolf. It's better
There
this
you go.
way. And you used to ask me. We're up to 23 followers now, my friend, and I'm
Yes.
sure at least a few of those are from this YouTube. So thank you for getting my numbers up. It was a lonely
Woo.
place for a while, and I love seeing people get fully engaged in this community. So welcome aboard 2023, Renee.
There you go. Love it. Love it. And you could see our screen names on Letterboxd at the bottom of your screen there, so it's easy for you to follow. Great stuff about your numbers increasing. I think when we first started this, it was in the low to mid teens. I think it was.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, for the first year I used it, was like two people I knew who I got to sign
that's
up,
great.
and then they just didn't use it. So we're doing damn good now, baby.
That's great. I love it. I love it. Let's get that. Okay, 2023's goal. Let's get to 50. Come on, guys. Help us out. Help Blake out. Let's get him to 50 followers on Letterboxd. I
Seriously,
think
add
that
me
would
on
be
there. I'll add
awesome.
you back.
There
If
you go.
I just need more people, like anyone who's here and in this current space who's watching
Yeah.
now, I know that I'm going to respect your movie opinions. I also need to find more celebrities who are on Letterboxd because there are a lot, but
Mm,
oftentimes they're like low key, and it's not an app that like prioritizes that.
sure.
So, like, I was listening to something
Well, we
earlier
talked
where
about
directors
Bowen
are talking
Yang.
about being
Yeah.
on. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of directors who talk about going through their Letterboxd, the reviews on their movies, etc. But the most popular, I think this will be where we can end it. On the for my part, on the Letterboxd categories, they have the most popular and most favorite reviews, and the second most popular favorable review of the year was Bowen Yang from SNL for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Said, "This is one of the best things I've ever seen in my piece of shit life."
Oh, that's the best. I love that guy. That guy is fantastic. He's so funny. And that's so fitting too. That's perfect. But yeah, see, again, another reason to be on Letterboxd because you'll have a chance to see a lot of stuff like that there. And who knows, maybe you'll get a chance to follow a celebrity, a director, an actor, actress, or maybe they'll follow you. You never know, right? That would be the great thing. But as for me, again, Letterboxd, you could find Loki Geek there. Loki Geek, Twitch, not Twitch. I don't go on Twitch anymore. Twitter, Instagram, but most importantly, YouTube, where you could find us here every week doing the Movie Time podcast. Again, if you haven't done so already, it takes you a quick couple of seconds and it doesn't cost you a thing. Hit that like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Hit that notification bell so you can get notified every time a new episode is uploaded. It'll greatly help the community, grow the community, and recommend more stuff that you'll be interested in the future. Audio listeners, you can find us on the Loki Geek podcast channel through your podcast platform of choice. And to all your audio listeners who are out there now, thank you so much for your support. Don't forget to leave an awesome rating when it prompts you to. But all that out of the way and all that being said, this has been Movie Time. I've been Renee. That's been Blake. Thank you again for watching. Stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, and stay sane. And we'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, y'all.